Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside the OC. My name is Matt Cannizzaro, alongside my co-host, Daniel Farish. Daniel, how are things today?
Things are well here in Louisville, Kentucky, Matt.
All right. Well, appreciate you and your hard work as well, as always. And today we are joined by a very special guest, a gentleman I've known now for nearly 2 decades. And that just ages us a little bit. It has been that long. USBC Hall of Famer, 4-time Open Championships titleist, John Gaines. Welcome.
Matt, Daniel, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
You got it.
We're doing great. John, you are coming to us. Awesome shirt, by the way, Florida Gators.
You got to go Gators.
It. You know it. Jason Kaus would be proud right now as well.
Absolutely.
But you are coming to us from the Orlando area, so not too far, about an hour and a half from Gainesville, one of my favorite places in all of the world, and named after you. So I imagine that's a perfect reason.
Yeah, I wish it was named after the Gaines name. There might be something way back, but not that we're aware of. My sister actually graduated from there also. So
very cool. I knew I liked you guys for a reason.
Yeah.
That's just one of many, and we're gonna let the folks at home, the bowling fans, get to know you a little bit. We'll talk about your career. We'll talk about life. And we'll talk about all the details. Right now, of course, we know this is a wacky time for all of us in 2020.
Unprecedented for sure.
You no longer work in the bowling industry. So after a lifetime in the industry and various roles, from the booths at the Open Championships to being a district sales manager for Ebonite, traveling the country, and then in a coaching role as well, you've now left the industry. And you told me you just got home from work. So what are you up to? What are things like where you are? And obviously you're leaving the house.
A little background. I started bowling when I was 6. I started working in a bowling center when I was 15. I started working in a pro shop when I was 18. So, I've been in the bowling industry 36 years. And it just got to a point, just wanted to try something different. There were some opportunities for me to continue in the industry, but it would have required me to move, and just wasn't in the cards with a family. So I am now in the glass business. The owner is a bowler, however. Imagine that. There are several people in the company that do bowl, and quite competitively, honestly. We are all things glass. It's auto glass, residential glass, commercial glass. We're probably 75-80% auto glass. And then what I do is a lot of the newer vehicles have safety features. And when you replace your windshield and there's a camera there, you actually have to recalibrate that computer system. And I actually run that department. So that's kind of what I'm doing now.
All right. Now you've got, of course, the wife and kids at home. And so something you want to be extra careful of going out in the real world and coming back home. And talk about that and just the extra precautions that you've had to take and just the general fears out there. I actually haven't left the house. I can't remember the last time.
Right.
We're here. We're talking to bowlers and talking bowling, but a little different for you. So talk about a typical day.
Sure. So auto glass is considered an essential business. Anything automotive is considered essential. So that is why I'm still currently, and actually I'm going to tell you, fortunate to go to work. Let's face it, there are quite a few people that aren't currently employed, and it's a very tough situation for everybody. But even going to work, everybody's very respectful. We try to keep our distance. We've installed hand sanitizers, and I'm going to tell you, I wash my hands probably 50 times a day. If I get up from my desk, I wash my hands or use a hand sanitizer. So yeah, it's unprecedented times for sure.
All right. Well, back in our day, and I'll go. We'll dive into the bowling part now.
You're old enough to say "in our day"?
In our day, it's been a while, believe it or not. I tell the stories often, and my favorite, of course, one of my favorites is the first time that I ever talked to you. For those of you who can't tell, John Gaines is about 6'9", and he's a very scary and imposing gentleman. Very intimidating. I was absolutely petrified when it was time to go up and talk to him. And, it was I was a young guy in my career and just looking to know the right people. And I was so scared. And Aaron Smith backs me up on this, as he's had to talk to you many times as well. But those first few conversations, and then you get to know you a little bit. And as soon as the kids came along, and you're just a big softy.
Yeah, I'm more laid back than people realize. I'm very obviously very businesslike, and especially when it's game time. I mean, it's on, and you see me bowl enough to know that I don't mess around a whole lot. But off the lanes, I'm for the most part easy going.
Well, I've seen some of your best moments at the Open Championships, and some not so great ones as well.
Sure, part of it.
We've kind of started things off each time chronologically, taking the folks back to where it all started, and then working our way toward, in your case, going into the Hall of Fame. So for you, we'll go just a few miles east to Jacksonville, Florida, 1988.
A little north, a little east.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the Maryland area, in the Baltimore, Maryland area, and I was very fortunate that, as small a state as Maryland is, there was actually some pretty good players. And let's face it, the Northeast. I mean, traveling up to New York and New Jersey and even further up, there are some very good players in the Eastern Seaboard, and Baltimore was no different. I got hooked up with some people. One was Mike Listowski. Michael, if you recall, won the Masters. He beat Pete Weber to win the Masters. There were some other really good local bowlers. I actually grew up with Danny Wiseman. Danny and I have known each other for probably 40 years now. So the competition back then was even quite strong. It kind of drove me. And that just, again, there were some very good players going to bowl the then ABC tournament. And we had the prime spot to bowl the ABC tournament. We actually bowled Masters weekend. That was quite a lot of fun. I watched Earl Anthony bowl every year with Gary Mage and Earl's son, Michael Anthony, and then we bowled that squad, and literally we bowled doubles and singles. And right after doubles and singles, everything was shut down because that's when practice session for the Masters was. So it was a really opportune time to go. And that was kind of the reason I was trying to get in with those teams. A lot of it was their time slots. Yes, they were great players. It was also because of the time slots and then trying to bowl the Masters. Back then, you were not allowed to bowl the Masters and then bowl the ABC tournament after. But you could bowl the ABC tournament and then the Masters. So to be able to make one trip out of it was obviously a great situation for travel purposes.
Certainly being around those great players helped elevate your game as well. And Daniel is new to the Open Championships in our role, but not new to bowling, certainly not bowling history.
Sure.
Daniel, what have you heard about the legacy of Lodge Lanes? That's what we're going to talk about the next 25 years, essentially, of John's career. Really have to do in part to Lodge Lanes and the legacy, and a name that you're pretty familiar with in your job now at the OC.
I can't hear him, Matt.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
There we go. That was my fault.
There you go.
We're good.
Rookie. Way to go, rookie.
We will either have JT edit that out in post, or we'll leave the blooper in, one of the two. But before I got to the OC, I had heard about some of the top tier teams that had success at the Open Championships, but I didn't know a lot of them. I had heard of Lodge Lanes, and then when I got there last year, Matt, you schooled me pretty quickly on the teams that needed to be known, and teams that had deep history at the OC, and that was one of the ones that you educated me on pretty quickly. So I was caught up to speed within the first probably couple of days of being there of the history of that group of John, his teammates, and everything they've accomplished in the last 20 years.
Well, getting the tutelage there of Mike Lastowski, that's pretty good right there in itself. We get to celebrate 50 years with Mike in 2018. Got to hear some of his stories as well. And then within a decade of that first year, 1988, you had become one of the best players in the country and surrounded yourself with even more phenomenal talent. leaning on a veteran to kind of lead the way and show you the way a little bit. And that's where we get to the Lodge Lane story. I'm sure a lot happened between 1988 and 1996 when you started bowling with Bob Gorky, who we'll talk about. But just catch us up on those few years, and then the beginning of the legacy for you.
So my tenure with Lodge Lanes started in 96. The Lodge Lanes goes back to 84. Bob's first year was in 1972. His father had 40 plus years at the ABC tournament. Lodge Lanes, his family bought the bowling center in 1972. And then that was Bob's first year. His 50th is coming up here soon. I've already talked to him, and not a very good time for a bowling center owner to be going to the Open Championships in the fall, but he is not missing it. So it will still be in Houston where he'll get to his 50th. Again, the Lodge Lane started in 84 was the first year of that team. So kind of like what I was doing with the Baltimore group when I was bowling in the tournament, it was some good bowlers, but more, some friends also. And competitive, yes, possibly to win, maybe not. Where the Lodge Lanes, where I first started in 96, that started between Chris Barnes and Goike. They had made Team USA together in 95, and they were out in Reno, literally. They were bowling a friendly match against Team Japan, and they were on a bus ride, and Chris had the idea. He was talking to Bob saying, hey, would you be interested in possibly putting together maybe a little bit different team? Because Bob, again, had been bowling with his friends from Detroit for several years by then, so 84 to 95, and Bob's like, yeah, I'd be interested in it or entertain it under the right circumstance. And Chris was like, well, I got some guys. And at that time, he didn't have anybody. He was actually just he didn't have anybody. He was literally starting with himself and then trying to put some other folks together. And him and Bob talked about it some more, and Chris and I by that time, we had become very good friends. And then he called me, and obviously he went to school with Patrick Keeley, and he knew Kazuski because Kazuski had gone to school at Wichita State. And it all just it came together. And that first year in 96, even though we were all pretty good players, it's something we still talk about to this day, we weren't a team yet. And that tournament requires ultimate teamwork. And so 96 was okay, but not anywhere close to what we were looking for. So again, even though we were all pretty good players and we all knew each other, we were not a team yet. So that going into that next year into 97 in Huntsville, even then making a lot of phone calls. We didn't have the internet, or there's no patterns or anything to study up on. But we did make some phone calls, and we bowled pretty early in the tournament. We bowled the first Tuesday of March. So the tournament at that point had only been going on 2 weeks. It usually started right around Valentine's Day, correct, Matt?
And yeah, typically early February.
Right. So it had only been going on for a couple of weeks. So we actually bowled early in the tournament. But even by then, you could still get some information as to what may be working, not working, some ideas, and so on. So even back then, we were making phone calls trying to prepare and to go out to the tournament. In 97, we had a pretty good tournament. I think Chris and I finished 7th in doubles, something like that, top 10. And then we won team all events in 97. And then 98, obviously, just a monster year. We still talk about it to this day. Those 2 days are in the top 2 or 3 in my bowling career, especially the second day with doubles and singles.
Well, at that point, Gorky was 25 years into his career. He
was already in the Hall of Fame. He had just gotten in the Hall of Fame.
He received the very first Eagles, the actual Eagles trophy as we know it today, by our research. First was presented in 1984. So he's got the very first ones off the press. And we've seen those, and I imagine there's a lot of conversation about what those meant. Of course, Chris coming from the Wichita area, understanding from Gordon Vatican and those guys in the late 80s, what this event meant.
Shelton Vending. Yeah, 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 Shelton Vend
But at that point in 1996, you were just coming off the team all events record that still stands today, Pollard's Bowl, and something that you guys actually gave a run during your little dynasty. But did you understand at that point? Did Bob really get it into you guys what this event meant, what the Eagles meant?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing because, again, I'd gone with some pretty good players from Baltimore. And, again, Mike Listowski was part of that group. I didn't bowl on Mike's team, but there was still a large team, a group of guys from Baltimore that went. And I can't tell you how different a feeling it was when we walked into the Salt Palace in 96. It was just a completely different thing. I was like, okay, there's something different going on here. We hadn't even bowled yet. We just walked in the building. And people knew who Bob was. And by that time, they had also knew who Chris was and Healy. But everybody at that tournament, and especially the employees of the tournament, they knew who Bob Goyke was. And it was even then quite different. And even when we got out of the lanes, and there's way more people than I've ever experienced watching us bowl. So yes, very quickly I learned how much different and what level we were going to be bowling at, and some of the possibilities that we had going forward. It was an amazing experience.
You mentioned the first year you guys bowled together as a team, that you all weren't quite a team yet in Huntsville, but
Salt Lake. Salt Lake was the first year. Yeah.
Huntsville was, that was the good year.
Right.
Salt Lake, were there any added nerves or pressure by joining a group of players that talented? You were all talented in your own right, but to join together, were there any added nerves or pressure for that?
No, and that's the funny thing, because that's where we were friends, and we had already very fortunate to already have some success in bowling, some world team challenge type stuff, and just other tournaments, even as individuals or locals or whatever. So even by that point in time, so the nerves, I won't say there was any added pressure. I get pretty jacked up anyway when I'm going to bowl. I'm there for a reason, and I'm there to get my picture taken, right, Matt?
Absolutely.
So, right. And not many people understand that. It took a while for a lot of people to understand that. But so the nerves really weren't there. I think we expected so much of ourselves anyway. We're all highly competitive, and not just on the lanes. I've played quite a few rounds of golf with Chris, and even off the lanes, we're all super competitive. None of us like to lose at anything, and it doesn't matter what we do. We're going to go at it full blast. So, I don't know about nerves, but it was definitely a different situation I was used to.
Anyone who follows sports knows that chemistry is important, whether you're talking NBA, MLB, NFL, that carries over to bowling. Yeah. How were you guys between 96 and 97? I'm sure there wasn't one moment where it just clicked, but what changed, or how did you all make it better in just 1 year to go from 96 to winning team all events?
Yeah, it was just a communication thing, that when I said this, making sure you understood what I meant. And again, to this day, Chris and I argue, if I leave a two pin, if I leave a two pin, my move is a little bit different than his. So if I threw a shot and I left a two pin, I needed to learn how to explain that I did this, or I may have threw a little hard, or I moved a little bit first, or before we just did what we did, and there wasn't a whole lot of communication on the lanes. Talking about it throughout the course of that, after we bowled in 96 and then getting into 97, it was more just communication, make sure we're on the same page, of that when one of us said this is what, how this person will move. Sometimes it might not move at all. But until then, we just didn't have that team communication from frame to frame.
Well, now we've all seen Chris Barnes launch a bowling bag or two in his day. So we kind of know, I imagine, his role a little bit on that team, but who gets to tell him what to do when you're out there and things aren't going right? And obviously they went very right for those couple of years, but who got that job? Yeah,
there are three fairly strong personalities on the team. Goyke probably has he probably has the most weight, if you will, and hey, this is what we need to do, and this is what we're going to do. Chris and I just throw haymakers at each other. So we have no problem telling the other one what to do and what they do with it. And we've, again, rooming with Chris for several years, we had some knockdown dragouts and back in the hotel room after we got done bowling. Again, just about, I can't believe you did that, or how'd you throw that, or why did you do that, and you're full of it, and whatever. And it took a while for us to get on the same page. So, but I think there was such a respect there. It was never ill-willed. So, it's gonna be a strange thing to say too. Is as big egos as some of us do have. In that team setting, none of us had an ego. And I think, again, that's where that team success came. We all knew we were capable. Once we realized we all had the same goals, there really weren't any egos. So, telling Chris to move, like, hey, bro, you need to do this. And, okay, it was never an issue.
You guys broke through quickly in '97, but there also was kind of the impending the decisions potentially for at least three of you guys about the PBA Tour going pro, kind of changing direction a little bit, not knowing how long this Dynamo team could stay together. But you got the job done in '97. Talk about that. Finally getting there. Team all events, of course, is the big one. That's 45 games, all events totals added together over however many pairs of lanes at that point, moving lanes between sets, and a lot of things need to go right. And to put up the numbers that you did as well, just talk about the feelings and the emotions, and maybe how that even changed some of the decisions down the road.
Yeah, again, when you're bowling, especially when you're bowling at that level, the way I explain it is you're not allowed to watch. So there were so many things that were going on that I don't recall whatsoever, because I was so hyper-focused in my job. This is my job. This is my task. Everything else is blocked out. So even though you kind of know what's going on, you're still so focused on the moment that it really didn't matter. My job every frame was just to throw the next one and throw it the best I can. And if it strikes, fantastic. And if it doesn't, figure out what to do next and move on. And once it's done, it truly was done. So, you really don't realize what happened until afterwards, where you're taking a picture and you got this big white statue of a bird in your hand. You're like, oh, okay. So yeah, this is kind of cool. But in the moment, I'm going to tell you, we didn't treat it any differently than anything else.
All right, and then of course the weight in the 1990s was a little bit different than the weight in 2013 when it happened again for you. But talk about the weight and finally getting the news that first eagle had been achieved, and obviously we'll talk about what happened the year after. But that very first one, it had to be pretty special for you.
Oh, it's phenomenal. You wait for those, whatever it was, 3.5 months or whatever, and there's a lot of good teams to come, and especially around Masters weekend, and that first weekend of May when the Masters was bowled, and the wait is on, and that was also when I was working the booth. I worked for the Ebonite booth in Huntsville, so I was actually there every day. So I was getting the phone calls of, hey, who bowled? How they bowled? What happened? How's the scores? Anybody make a run at us? And so for me, I'm not sure which was tougher, to be away from it and hearing about it that somebody may have beat the score, or being there every day. And Matt, Dan, you've been there. I'm talking about that buzz that starts to happen when somebody starts to bowl good. The entire building knows it. Uh-huh. It's not a secret. So when I'm there working, even off the lane somewhere in the booth, word gets around. So you kind of sneak out there and you're kind of watching and whatever. So I was actually there, so I knew exactly when the last ball was thrown. I knew that we had won at that point in time. So I was actually making the phone calls to the guy saying it's done deal. We're good.
In previous podcasts, Matt has asked me, at what moment last year was my aha moment about how big this tournament was and what it meant to some of the people. And my aha moment is Derek Magno, who was on last year's Team All Events championship team, was actually on site the last day of the event. He was in town on work, and seeing his emotion when the last ball was thrown and they were unofficially the champions. That was my aha moment. So you were on site in '97 when that happened. What was your instant reaction when that last ball was thrown and it was unofficially official?
It was probably more a relief than anything else. You wait, and then when you know it's official that the wood is gone, they can't get there. It was more relief than anything else. The title didn't kind of sink in for a little while later. Probably when I actually got the trophy in my hand, the eagle in my hand. That's when the moment happened. But the rest of it was probably just more relief. Like, man, we did it. We actually pulled this off. And it was a plan. We got together on purpose. This was our goal. This is exactly what we were trying to accomplish. And to see that plan actually come to fruition, it was very gratifying, no doubt.
You guys came back a year later and made it even better. You came back, of course, as a defending champion for the very first time. I imagine the feelings were different. The emotions were different, being introduced, the orange eagle on the scoreboard next to your names.
Not that year. Not that year. Not that year. That was one of the things we talked about, that at the stadium, 98 at the stadium, they didn't have that opportunity with the scoreboard. They didn't have that bird up there.
We added that later on, but
yeah,
you missed out.
We didn't get to see that. Yeah.
Okay, so luckily, again, it went better in '98. So you took it out on the pins at that point. And you guys came within 4 pins of breaking the Team All Events record. We'll talk about records later on, but to win again, was the mindset going in any different? Were the feelings after taking the lead any different? And then we have this awesome picture as well that we want to share.
Yeah,
that happened
less than an hour afterwards.
That's it.
That was less than an hour afterward, right there.
But that's true friendship, decades of friendship, and eagle winning, something that certainly brings people even closer together. But sum up the '98 run as well.
That was probably my top 2 or 3 bowling accomplishments there. I mean, I had the title, so and you never know when it's going to happen again. But it happened once, and that's fantastic. So, but again, we still had a job to do, and our task was to try to go out there and do it again. And we were very fortunate. But along the way, that second day was, it was incredible. We talk about some scores and some numbers, but as a group, in singles, Barney was the low single scorer with 711. I shot 814 to win singles. What people don't realize is up until about the 3rd or 4th frame of the 3rd game of singles, I was actually second behind Bob. Goike was actually ahead of me. So we shot 37-37 for our singles as a group. 37-37 was our number as a singles for a group. Yeah, it was 36 and change for doubles. We really didn't bowl all that much. I mean, we shot 10,421, which when you do the math is a pretty significant number for all events, team all events. Mm-hmm. We really didn't bowl that much in team event. Everything was the second day. We were like 1,200, 1,300 over on the second day. So 3,600 in doubles and then 37-37 for singles. And it just, how do you put that into words? I mean, that's just something that was literally, it was a once in a lifetime event. Chris wins all events. I win singles. We won team all events. Chris and I finished second in doubles. It's just crazy of what happened.
Yeah, and that's not just, that's not one guy bowling well to win all events or
exactly.
Singles. It's not 2 guys getting hot in doubles. It's all 5 of you. Were you kind of feeding off of one another that whole set?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt we were feeding off each other. That was, just like any team event, I mean, when one or two guys get going, it really brings everybody else up a level or two. And in this case, I mean, it was nonstop. I mean, we kept striking and we kept striking. And again, the communication was constant. If you go back and look, Gus Yannaris's team had bowled, I think, a week before us in 98. And Gus's team, I believe, finished second or third in team all events that year in 98. So, and I knew Gus, and I had a little conversation with him, and they came off the lanes and they're ecstatic. And I didn't know exactly what the number was. And he goes, we had just bowled the second highest team all event score ever bowled.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, whoa, that's a pretty good number. And he said it even then. He goes, there's about 3 or 4 teams I know that have a chance at that, and that's one of the teams is you. I'm like, gosh, you guys just bowled the second highest score ever. I mean, that's a – and then literally like a week later, we ended up beating that score, and it was, again, just an amazing deal.
At any point during that singles and doubles run, were you guys watching the lead number, or were you watching a record, or were you just throwing shots?
Throwing shots, frame by frame. Nobody ever. The only person that actually did keep score, Goike did keep score. Goike was always adding it up. The rest of us, we were numb, just went and bowled, just did what we were supposed to do.
Uh-huh.
But Goike knew exactly where we stood with everything. I look at scores. I don't ever let it change what I do. I'm aware, but not. It doesn't. I'm not nervous. I'm not trying to chase a number. I just bowl, and what happens. But yeah, I mean, we just kept feeding off each other, and it just kept going.
Now, there's very few guys, I think, in this world, this industry, who share my appreciation for the event, the passion for the event in such a way. You're one of those guys. At that point now, you're about to be a 3-time Eagle winner at the Open Championships. And again, the stories you've told and the feelings you've expressed about how you feel about the event, how does it change at that moment when it's all of a sudden 3-time champion John Gaines and you're being introduced, and then a year later you did get to finally see those Orange Eagles up on the scoreboard in Syracuse?
Right, but not the whole team, because that's when the team changed.
Right, you guys kicked Barnes off. You kicked Barnes off the team.
We kicked Barnes off, and we picked up some kid named Tommy Jones. that's a whole nother story. Goike at that point in time, he was so involved with the center and his family. And he goes, look, you're still involved, and you know all the younger guys. And I need you to go find 2 bowlers because Barney and Patrick Keeley are going to go on tour. And I joke around about that. You see how that worked out for Barnes going out on tour. That was a complete disaster, right? So I told Bob, sure, I know a couple guys I might be able to make some phone calls. So one of the guys we picked up was Bill Rowe from Canada. Billy had been on Team Canada, I don't know, 6-8 times already, and are well known in the amateur ranks, and called him, and he immediately said, well, of course I'd bowl. And the other one, I had just met Tommy not long before, a young kid, I think at the time, 19, 20 maybe. And I called Goike and said, hey, we picked up Billy Rowe. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's good. And he goes, well, who else did we pick up? And I'm like, yeah, you don't know him. He goes, well, I just need his information. I need to fill out his information. What's his name and where's he from? I'm like, his name is Tommy Jones. He's from Greenville, South Carolina, and he's 19. And there's dead silence on the other end of the phone. He goes, who? I went, exactly, Tommy Jones. I was like, Bob, you got to trust me on this. He goes, well, of course I trust you, but who?
Who?
Tommy Jones, Greenville, South Carolina. He's like, and how old is he? I was like, I don't know, 19 or 20. He goes, let me get this straight. You're going to replace Chris Barnes with a 19-year-old kid? Yeah. Okay, whatever. And the following year, we go to 99, we go bowl in Syracuse, and what do you know, Tommy Jones wins all events. And Bob's just sitting there shaking his head. Where did you find him? I don't know, just one of those things. And that was kind of what I would think is kind of TJ's coming out party, if you will, was 99 in Syracuse. And then, we won the the World Team Challenge Grand Championships that year. After 99, people knew exactly who Tommy Jones was. And then same thing, he decides to go out on tour, and what do you know? Again, what a horrible decision that was for him too, right? It was terrible.
Well, now you guys, he won all events, and you guys nearly won team all events again. So not only were you the last team to repeat in 98, but you came within a stick of a three-peat. One pin of a three-peat and a dynasty at the Open Championships. That had to be
it was heartbreaking.
A phenomenal heartbreak.
It is to this day. We've talked about it many times, and even to this day, 1999, it's 20 plus years ago now. I still think about that one pin. Where do you find one pin in 45 games? You can't find that anywhere, right?
No.
One pin. Yeah, one pin that, a 7 count to a 9 count. And, a missed spare. Anything. One pin. The team we lost to, let's face it, Dan Ottman's team, Dan and Billy Oldakowski, and let's face it, very accomplished players and very good players, and Billy and I, we talk we still talk about it when we run into each other. We still talk about it. It was a great accomplishment, and all you do is congratulate them, say, hey, great bowling. That's all you can do. You go out there. It's one of the things I really love about the tournament. There's no re-entries. You don't get to go re-enter. Everybody bowls in the same thing. You shoe up, you go bowl, you post your score, and you go home. And if it doesn't work out, you got to wait another whole year. And you look at the names and the history, and it's a one-shot event, and that's one of the things that makes it so cool.
Now, you guys went on. Everybody went their different directions, and you returned year after year and brought great players with you. But the one thing that's carried on is that Lodge Lane's name. How important has it been for you to show that respect to Goike and his guys and the ones that came before you and to maintain that legacy all the way even till now?
Yeah, I owe Bob. I can't tell you, and not just in bowling, but even personally, I can't tell you how much I owe to Bob. One of the smartest businessmen I know, one of the truly just genuinely nice people in the world. So it's not just, that's where this group is, it's not just about the bowling side of things. It was also the friendships that we developed, lifelong friendships. It was the least I could do was to try to, an ode to Lodge Lanes and try to keep that history going. Because it meant everything to me, and really my career, my life, I owe a lot to Goike. So again, it was one of the least, things I could do. Our trophy from 2013 is actually sitting in his trophy case in the bowling center in Lodge Lanes.
Well, let's talk about that team because as you transitioned into your career, you took on that Bob Goike role. You recruited the young players and taught them about what the Open Championships means and what the Eagle means. And you put together a phenomenal team that did something pretty incredible in 2013. Let's talk about that day. For me, it was the best day off. Aaron Smith actually was gonna let me out of the building for the day. You and I went. We had some breakfast.
Yeah.
Just to get ready, talk about the day a little bit, and just really catch up. And then within a few hours, things were unfolding. As you said, when somebody's bowling well a certain way, the word gets out, and certainly the word got out. And then that 10th frame was one of the most unforgettable moments of tournament history. John Janowitz on the approach and delivers all 3 shots in the 10th for 35-38. You guys beat a 20-year-old team event record by a single pin. I know how it was from my perspective, but you were there. Tell us about it. And you threw your shots, and then you got to watch the JJ show as well.
Yeah, I wanted to get up nice and close for that one too, especially in the 10th frame. I normally, as you know, I have my little place at the stadium where I kind of sit on the stairs. I know it's different now with the remodel, but I kind of go sit in a little cubby hole there and just kind of chill and kind of watch and take it all in. And I'll, convey information when necessary and where necessary, but otherwise just kind of keep to ourselves and not overplay it. But when we got to the 10th frame and understanding what was going on, I got right up in the front seat because I really wanted to witness, the history, the possible history. and he just absolutely aced all three. I mean, you can go back and watch online, and he definitely they were all 3 10 back. It wasn't even close. So in Double J, anybody that knows him, he's very oblivious to most of that stuff. And what we were really trying to do is just pile on pins. At that point in time, we already had the lead. So what are you going to do? You just pile on pins and try to make it harder and harder and harder for somebody else to try to get to. So it was kind of funny because we always have a team dinner afterwards, and many folks are coming up to us, hey, you broke the record. Hey, you broke the record. I'm like, this ain't about a record. The record's great, but if it gets broken, so what? But if it gets broken this year, that means not only do we lose the record, but we also lost the Eagle. So the record, I'll worry about the record later. The records are meant to be broken. Obviously, it was broken the following year. It was about that title. So, yeah, it was cool watching them throw all 3 in the 10th because it had a couple meetings. To break the record, any record is always cool to break, especially something that's been there that long. But it was more about piling on pins. The more pins we can get, the tougher it is for somebody to chase that down, because that's one of the toughest things to do at the OC is to chase down the lead. The scoreboard, you got that giant scoreboard right there. It's not hard to miss, and the math is pretty much being done for you. So it's always hard to try to chase down a score. So at that point in time, we had taken the lead 5 frames ago. So we were just trying to pile on pins at that time.
Well, I'm sure it makes it a little more difficult for the guys that followed you all that year, knowing not only did they have to catch your number, but in order to take over the lead, they had to break a record. It's not just, okay, here's the number that's set that we have to reach to take a lead. It's we have to beat this number to take a lead. Oh, and by the way, that's the new record. Yeah, it's double the pressure on those guys.
Oh, no doubt, to chase it down, anytime. And there were a couple teams, more than a couple, there were several teams that had a shot at it going in. And I truly believe by being, that's where the record did mean something, because they knew they had to get to that number. And that's a huge number to try to get to.
Well, now for you, that was Eagle number 4. For Janowitz, it was number 3. We'd had talks over the years about Hall of Fame and different things. And of course, the addition of the category Outstanding USBC Performance. Did that solidify it for you? Do you feel like at that moment, was that something that was in the back of your mind that this was a goal of yours?
I believe so. I do believe that I would say put me over the hump. Especially because a Hall of Fame career is also I guess a lifespan. It is a career, if you will. It's not any one tournament. It's not like we went out there and won 2 or 4 Eagles in a year or 2. And I mean, this was over a lifetime. And also the average. I was fortunate enough to bowl well enough. I was in the top 20 in averages at the time. And so, you're looking at a span, and, the top 10 finishes. That was something else that you always instilled in us. Doesn't matter how bad it seems right now, you got to continue to try, because the average list meant something and the top 10s meant something. So even if we were out of the wood, man, he was in our ass if we even remotely let up, even for 1 frame.
Well, now that team, of course, a little bit different than the previous ones that you were able to win with. You had some first-time champions on the team. You had a long-timer in Mitch Dubinsky, who is approaching now 50 years at the Open Championships.
Yeah, him and Joy are the same.
Yeah, his first title came in 1987. So here he is, lifetime later.
Amazing, isn't it?
Being able to be a part of him winning again, and then for the other guys, Scotty and Vernon, and just being able to share that winning feeling. Just describe that in your new role, because it had to feel way different than it did back in 98.
Again, all 4 titles were completely different. Your first one's your first one. That's always going to be what it is. And then when we bowled in 98, how we bowled as a team, that was truly a team effort there. Again, going back to you, Dan, about what you were saying about, did you feed off each other? And absolutely. But then in this instance, in 2013, I was, I guess, the team captain, if you will. So now all information is going through me. So I'm not only trying to bowl myself, but I'm also trying to, feed the information to the guys. And I was probably the only one that knew everybody, all 10 guys, all 9 other guys, I should say. Everybody kind of knew each other, but I was the only one that knew all other 9 fairly close. So I was also trying to help the other 5 guys, on our companion team. And it's not an A team or B team. I hate when people say that. It was never an A team or B team. That's not what I was trying to do. They were not sacrificial lambs in any way, shape, or form. They were also very accomplished players. And if you go back and look for the prior couple of years, they actually kicked our ass a couple of years prior. I think they finished 4th the one year. I mean, they were more, and had a few things gone right, they would have actually won that year that they finished 4th. So again, they were also more than capable. So I'm going to tell you, physically, bowling the 3 games was bowling the 3 games. Mentally, I was exhausted of knowing what was going on. Goike taught me what to look for, how to look for it, what's going on, how to work with that information, and then how to feed it back to the other players. And so I'm trying to do that on top of trying to bowl, and then we win, and then we break a record. I literally, that's why the second day didn't go very well. Here we are, okay, now we're going to try to make a run at the team all events again. So we were exhausted. I mean, we literally put every ounce of energy we had, and it just didn't work out the next day. A couple of bad decisions, and it just didn't go well. I mean, it is what it is. It's part of the deal.
Well, in that role as well, you are a role model, and you mentioned your companion team. Some youngsters in that group. Sean Lee had 300 at the Open Championships in 2008. John Trzynski had 800 with you guys. Yeah. Matt Gilman was a talented young player, and he went on to nearly win singles at the stadium as well in 2016 with 800 plus. But as in the role model part of this, what did it mean to have them be a part of this experience and this year in 2013?
Yeah, I mean, that's what even made it that much more gratifying is, again, I know I call it a privilege, and I know the privilege that I was given and the help that I was given with Goike, and I was only trying to give back to some other friends that I thought had the same opportunities. So when things worked out, like you said, when Trzynski shot 800 and Gilman had a shot, I think he finished tied for 2nd that year. Matt Farber was part of our team. I still feel bad about. We bowled pretty good. Well, he bowled great in doubles. And because of some physical injuries, I did everything I could. I think we finished 17th or 18th that year, but we had a chance going into the 3rd game of taking the lead there. So again, trying to teach somebody like Matt or Trzynski or Gilman, some of the younger guys, of what that tournament really means. And then for some of that to have some success, it makes it that much more special.
Well, it was only fitting, of course, with all the success in Reno, that the Hall of Fame induction a year later happened in Reno as well, right across the street at the event center. The culmination of an amazing career that hopefully isn't quite over yet. But to get up there and make that speech and have your family there, and also I believe, I'm not 100%, but I feel confident, you also were the only inductee to have a Backstreet Boy. That's right, a member of the Backstreet Boys in the audience as well. Talk about that night and just the relief and the pride and just all that went into that evening.
Yeah, it's still, it's still kind of surreal. Even now when I go back for the ceremonies as a Hall of Famer, and I'm wearing the same jacket as everybody else, and you look at some of the people that are up there, and especially when you're getting announced, they bring everybody in the room one by one, they announce you, and you're kind of out in the hallway, and most of these people you see once a year, and this is where you see them. So, hey, how's it going? Hugs and kisses and everything else. But you take a step back and you look at it and you go, I'm wearing the same jacket they are. Again, it's truly amazing, truly surreal. And, I worked on my speech for a while, and, bits and pieces. I knew this was not going to come together. I had a lot of people to thank, and I'm trying to figure out what to write. And not sure how to do it. And then at the end of the day, it ended up being more of a thank you speech than anything else, because there were truly many, many people that I needed to thank for my success. I mean, yes, I threw the ball and okay, I performed. That's great. But without those other people, I wouldn't even have the opportunity. So that's where my speech kind of came about is it was a thank you speech of all the people I felt had something to do with my success.
All right, we're not going to get away with not telling Daniel about your enjoyment and your friendship with the Backstreet Boys.
So one of my best friends here in Orlando, Chris Cecere, when I was an Ebonite rep, DSM, I didn't know Chris from anybody, and I went and he had owned a pro shop here in town in Orlando, and I went and visited him, and in his shop there, he had quite a few Backstreet Boy tickets kind of on the side over there, and I'm looking, there's some backstage stuff, and I'm like, who's the Backstreet fan? He goes, well, I am. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, whatever. And he goes, yeah, I kind of know one of the guys. I'm like, okay. And as you know, Matt, it's not my music at all, not my genre, not even close. I mean, I'm an 80s hair metal guy. I mean, I love Van Halen, Pink Floyd. Rush is one of my favorites. I've been to many, many concerts. So Backstreet's probably as far away as you could get from that.
The very other end of that spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, okay, whatever. So Chris and I ended up being very good friends. And Chris calls me up one day and said, hey, Alex is coming to town and wants to play golf. Do you want to play? Because I love to play golf. And I'm like, sure, I guess, whatever. I didn't even know what he looked like. I literally went online that morning. To like, I wouldn't recognize this guy if he was standing right next to me. So I went online, looked it up, like, oh, he's the guy with all the tattoos. Okay. So we went out and played golf, and Alex is actually he's a pretty good athlete. If he tried, he could average 200 in league. I mean, he's got some talent in golf. If he had the time, I'm going to tell you, he could probably be a single-digit handicap in golf. He has some physical ability. So not only can he sing, definitely can dance, but he does have some physical ability. So I didn't know anything about him, but the reason we hit it off is I could have cared less that he was a Backstreet Boy. I've been around athletes all my life, whether it be football, baseball, basketball. My brother-in-law played Major League Baseball. He was a pitcher. He got drafted by the Braves. He got traded to Cincinnati. He played in Cincinnati when Griffey was there in Cincinnati. He went from there to Texas. When he played in Texas, there was some guy named A-Rod in the infield that he played with, and Pudge Rodriguez was his catcher. And then he moved on to Tampa. I played under Lou Piniella at Tampa, and my sister was living in Tampa or Sarasota at the time. And that's where Cincinnati, when it was with Cincinnati, that's when they first met, because Cincinnati spring training was in Sarasota. So, again, I've been around athletes all my life, so famous people, whatever. So being around Alex, AJ, was not a big deal to me, but he appreciated that. He knew I didn't care. We were just a couple guys out having a good time on the golf course. And from there, I mean, we exchanged phone numbers and we've stayed in contact. Matter of fact, I just sent him a message the other day. They just had an anniversary, I guess 30 years. I guess they've been together, something like that. And so we still talk from time to time. I mean, when they come to town, I'll go to the show and we'll hang out. And so I don't know. It was one of those things. I'm not sure how he ended up at the Hall of Fame dinner and their induction that night. Chris was definitely going to be there. I was like, hey, see if Alex wants to come up. You know, he lives in LA, not that far to get to Reno. And he said, yeah, he's coming. I'm like, whatever. He's not going to show. Well, sure enough, he decided to come to my induction. So I went to his wedding. I went to his bachelor party, which was really low key because Alex doesn't drink. So it was a really low key bachelor party, but I went to the wedding and everything. So yeah, I know a Backstreet Boy.
Well, and of course, in our role, we appreciate any opportunity to share bowling with, as we say, the outside world. In that case, it was awesome to have him there. I know that was the highlight of the night for Danny Silva.
Yes, absolutely. No doubt.
for you, your highlight, of course, you get to go in the USBC Hall of Fame. And for me, you mentioned me in your speech. It couldn't have gone any better for everybody involved. So I appreciate that still to this day.
No, man, again, I like I said before, there was a lot of people I needed to thank, and anybody I could think of that I thought had something to do with my career and my success. We've had many talks, and this is where we appreciate the history of the game. So when I would come to town, one of the things we would do, we'd always go to breakfast. We would always talk about the history. We would talk about what's going on. That helped me prepare to bowl that tournament. The closer I got, the more narrowed focus I got. Having those conversations with you, I mean, it made a difference. So, I'm the one thanking you. That's why, in the speech, thank you.
Well, I will always appreciate that. And I hope there's many more in the future. However, the one thing I don't know that I appreciated because it was gnarly was when you sent me a photo of your kneecap. Somewhere
it wasn't very pretty.
It should not have been. And thought potentially that was the potential end of your career. You're able to fight back from that, but wow, what a day that had to be. And you fought to get back out there because that's how much it meant to you. And sharing the OC experience with what ended up being at one point 4 teams of Lodge Lanes bowlers. But as your career flashed before your eyes on that approach that day, before sending that picture, can you just talk about that part of your career?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've had some other injuries. I played a lot of sports growing up as a kid. I played a ton of baseball. I'm going to tell you, I was growing up. I was probably a better baseball player than I was bowler. But even then, as a kid, as a teenager, my knees were already hurting, and I played catcher. And not the ideal position to be playing if your knees are hurting. So I just started putting more and more time in the bowling thing, and and it kind of worked out. But that day, it just hurt. That's probably more than I remember than anything is, I dislocated my knee, and people ask me, well, how did it happen? I kind of joke around. I wish I could make some really cool story of, I was parachuting or skydiving or saving the world or something like that. I'm like, no, I was bowling, and it just gave out on me. It was just one of those things. So, I quickly realized too, that happened, I think in March, April, and we weren't that far from going to El Paso. So I knew pretty much right then and there, like, well, this isn't going to work out. So here we go again, making some phone calls, and got some guy named Norm Duke. You guys ever heard of him?
Where do you find these people?
You just stumbled upon these guys. I mean, out of nowhere, left field.
So I called Norm and said, "Hey, man, would you be interested?" He goes, "Well, what's going on? What's involved?" And I explained to him. He goes, "Yeah, I think I can make that work." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And so, I got Norm Duke to replace me, and he ended up having he actually had a really good tournament in El Paso. He bowled really well. And he actually thanked me later on too. He goes, "It's been a while." And Barnes just said this many times that the format that they bowl in is strictly singles. They're always in singles. They're always trying to beat everybody. They don't bowl any of the team events. They have the league bowling now that the PBA does, and that's fun. But this is a completely different level. And Norm, we talked, after he got done bowling, he was like, "Man, it's been a while since I've had that much fun." And, again, going back to the OC about how great it is, you're talking, how many titles does Norm have now? 32, 3 titles, something like that on the PBA tour. I mean, Hall of Famer 10 times over. And he just told me how much fun he just had. It was one of the greatest experiences he's ever had. That's what makes, okay, here we go. Why is the OC great? There's another reason, that makes it so great. A guy like Norm hadn't done it in forever, and yet one of the great, like he said, in his words, that was some of the most fun I've had in a long time.
And in talking to Barnes a lot too, that's one of the things that he always touched on was you miss that team environment, bowling. The camaraderie, the chemistry. There's nothing like team bowling, something that he experienced, of course, in college and the World Team Challenge, and then with you guys at the Open Championships, which it turned out pretty well for him, and now he's got the opportunity to come back and do it again later in his career. But he did always note that was something he absolutely missed.
Absolutely.
With you guys and the chemistry and camaraderie.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Chris has been very open about it. And Norm, that day, he was like, man, that was really cool.
John, we've talked almost this entire podcast about your OC career, but you've had quite a few accomplishments outside of the Open Championships. One of them being appearances on Team USA. You won Team USA trials back in '97. You were on the team '98 through 2000. As my dog starts losing his mind, I don't know if you guys can hear that.
It's okay.
I apologize.
That's all right. My 5-month-old is about 15 feet from me, so you might hear him squeaking here soon.
But Team USA from '98 to 2000, you were at the World Championships in '99 in Abu Dhabi. What are some non-OC bowling experiences, whether Team USA, World Team Challenges, that stand out in your career?
Just making the team. I had tried multiple times, but the format back then was different. You couldn't just show up and bowl team trials. You had to win. I had to win my local qualifier to get to the state qualifier. Then I had to win the state qualifier to get to team trials. So I had tried multiple times, but there was a couple guys that, only one got to go. The state of Maryland is so small. So you had to win to get there, and it hadn't worked out. So I finally win the state. I'm finally going to team trials, because it was one of my goals to bowl with Chris. Chris had already been on the team multiple times, and I was, friends with Linda, and to be on the team, and it was fantastic. And so I finally get there and finally make the team, and then that's when that guy decided to go out on tour. So, it didn't work out that we got to bowl the team together, but it was obviously completely understandable. So, again, that was another fantastic experience of not just making the team, but winning. The national amateur title was phenomenal. I tell it to this day, one of the single greatest tournaments I ever was fortunate enough to bowl was the World Cup. One person, one male, one female, as you guys know, get to go to the World Cup every year and represent the United States. So I won 3 tournaments to get the opportunity to represent, and it was in Kobe, Japan. And I finished 8th, and I'm going to tell you, still one of the greatest tournaments I ever bowled. I didn't even win. I didn't make the show. I finished 8th, which again is very solid performance. And yet it was one of the greatest tournaments I was ever fortunate enough to bowl, finishing 8th. No money. There was a trophy and a couple medals and stuff like that. And yet one of the greatest tournaments I ever got to bowl. So, again, another opportunity and to travel the world, and Abu Dhabi and the World Championships, same thing there, a phenomenal experience. The 10-pin team championships in the Netherlands, I think we finished second there, finished second in Abu Dhabi to Sweden. Sweden had our number for a while there. Tomas Lee Anderson, pretty good player right there. And we finished second. I mean, what do? You do shake their hand, great bowling. I mean, they beat us. So
back in 2006, I was fortunate enough to be a member of Junior Team USA, and I got to compete one tournament down in Fort Lauderdale, the Tournament of Americas, and then one tournament down in Puebla, Mexico. And I'll tell you that wearing the red, white, and blue on your back, it's always special, but there was something different about it wearing it in another country. Explain to me what you felt, not just, getting a chance to bowl in the States as a member of Team USA, but traveling internationally and wearing the stripes and the colors on your back in a completely different country or different continent.
Yeah, I mean, we're not an Olympic sport. The closest we come is the Pan Am Games, and I was fortunate enough to bowl in the Pan Am Games. We won a gold medal. And what was cool about that particular one, I got the same gold medal as the basketball team. I mean, how often do you get to say something like that? It wasn't a bowling medal.
Right.
It was a gold medal that it didn't matter if it was the United States or whatever other country was competing. I got the same medal. That was really cool. But to stand up on a podium, especially in another country, and have the Star Spangled Banner played you can't explain it unless you go through it. And Daniel, you know what I'm talking about. Unless you're standing there and you're part of it, it really, you watch it on TV and you're like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Yeah, it's actually really cool. Especially when you're standing up there and they play it, like it has a different meaning. I mean, if you're any type of athlete, how many times do you hear the national anthem? I mean, think about it, right? Major League Baseball, basketball, football. We hear the national anthem sometimes, not necessarily 100 times for us, but we hear it quite often. It had a different sound when I was standing on a podium with a medal around my neck. It was truly different, and something, again, I'll never forget.
Yeah, I can attest to when we were in Fort Lauderdale for Tournament of the Americas. It was less than a month from when Junior Gold was there. So I'd been in that bowling center for Junior Gold. I was in there less than a month before, and standing on the podium receiving our gold medals for the different events at the TOA was something special. But it was kind of like, man, I was just here less than a month ago bowling Junior Gold. But the gold medal we won in Puebla down in Mexico, beating Brazil, beating Mexico, all those teams, Puerto Rico, it's something you can't explain, like you said, unless you've been there.
Oh no, it's such a different feeling, and it's an amazing feeling. And again, I look at it as a privilege. I mean, yeah, it was earned, whatever, but there's still a lot of things that have to go your way, and there's a lot of privilege and opportunity there that happen. So, a great experience for sure.
So now with everything we've talked about over the course of this hour now, is it possible? Can you pinpoint a top moment? Is there one thing that stands out as the best moment of your bowling life?
No, because there's not one. There really isn't just one. I mean, your first 200 game, your first 700 series, your first 300, all those have significant meanings along the way. So, is one more than the other? I mean, if it's your first 300, you're at a certain level and you finally accomplished a goal. So, is any one of those greater than another? For me, not necessarily. They all have their own special meaning, along the way. So, there are a couple that probably stand out. Again, making the team and winning national amateur title, going to Kobe and bowling the World Cup. The first Eagle, definitely special. Even winning singles was an amazing feeling because, yes, it's an individual accomplishment, but I also know what I contributed to the team to win team all events. So, that's a special meaning. And then 2013, of helping some of those guys, again, putting together a plan, virtually the same plan that Goike and Chris put together, but down the road with some other guys, and then watching that come to fruition, watching that unfold in front of my eyes. Again, another special meaning. I had some titles. So adding a fourth, of course, is fantastic. But seeing, Vernon and Scott Newell get there first, that also has, knowing that plan worked, that's what we set out to do. Again, that makes it. So is there any one of those that stand out? I'd have a tough time really taking one of those out.
And now that you're out of the bowling industry as a career, it's not your everyday life. You're not the team captain anymore. You're not out there putting in the games. Is there anything special that you miss about the sport, about the event? And now that you're outside looking in a little bit?
Yeah, that one's probably one of the easier questions. The two things I miss my friends. I do. I miss my friends. One of the things I always got upset about, and I had this conversation with Goike not long ago, is, Goike's from Detroit. I was at the time from Maryland. Chris is living in Wichita. Healy and Kazuski live in New York. We're not living anywhere close to each other. We're just guns for hire. We're there for one purpose. Well, yeah, we're there for the same purpose you are. We're there to win. So I'm not sure how you can make that, point that finger of you're there to win too. That's all we're trying to do is win. But we were friends first. I've been to Wichita, Kansas to play golf with Chris more times than I ever went there to bowl. I was a groomsman at his wedding. So I miss my friends for sure. I miss competition because you guys bowl, what I'm talking about there. Standing on the approach and knowing, whether the event, the magnitude of the event, getting your heart rate going, or down to the 10th frame where you need a strike to, whatever it is, to win a title or make the top 10 or whatever it is. You can't simulate that. There's nothing else that simulates that feeling. So again, probably an easy question. The two things I miss. I miss my friends, and I miss the competition.
Well, you are kind of out of the bowling industry the same way that all of us are out of society right now. So
yeah,
once our individual states get back to where we're kind of opening businesses back up and society kind of opens back up, what are you most looking forward to getting back to doing that maybe you took for granted that you didn't realize that you can't do now?
This might be go to the grocery store and not worry about it.
That's a very adult answer.
Yeah, I mean, man, you go to the grocery store now and you're just kind of looking around like, okay, trying to keep your distance and everything else. And, again, I have a beautiful wife and a young family, and my father's older. He has cancer, and so his immune system. I'm not able to see my dad right now. When I come home every day from work or going to the grocery store, and I'm super careful. So just little stuff, that's everyday life. That's real. That's what's real world there is.
Right.
So what am I looking forward to? Just to be able to go outside and not have to worry about it.
Well, you live in Orlando. There's not a whole lot to do there anyway. So, I mean, are you really missing that much out there?
Yeah. I mean, the Mickey Mouse Club has been shut down for a while, and same thing, SeaWorld, Universal, I mean, everything, all those are shut down. So the golf courses are open. They never did close down here. They're out in single golf carts, and same thing there. They're trying to keep their distance and so on. But honestly, what am I looking forward to? Just going outside and not worrying about anything.
All right. Well, before we go, are we going to get to meet the newest addition to the Gaines family?
Yeah. They're sitting right over here. We'll bring Kelly and Ryan over. We'll see how he's.
Is this a future Eagle winner, perhaps?
Who knows? He can do the same thing with Mother too. Same thing with Madison and John. They're 12 and 8, and they can pretty much do. This is Kelly and this is Ryan. Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Kelly and Ryan.
Hi.
Look at that. So yeah, when you say what am I going to miss? Not having to worry about go outside, so I can protect these two. So
well. Congratulations on the awesome
Thanks.
family and the additions, and
Thank you.
And glad you're staying safe, and we appreciate all you're doing, going to work every day, and
I'm even trying to. Well, it's probably trying to bowl. We just had to reschedule our state tournament. I am still bowling the state tournament, which I've done, even since not bowling the OC. Bowling with Bob and Crystal Schoeneman.
Hmm?
You guys know them. They literally live right up the street from us. And I bowled with Bob and Crystal, and Kelly and I bowled doubles. I did virtually the same team for a little while. It was Lodge Lanes down here also with Janowitz and Byrne and Scott Newell. We actually won 2 or 3 team titles down here with that team. So I was still bowling down here, just not nearly as much. First of all, it hurts too much to try to get out, especially to compete at that level. I mean, I know what it takes to compete at that level. People ask me, how did you get to where you got to? I put my shoes on and I bowled a hell of a lot of games is how I got there. I got some advice along the way, but there's nothing substitutes putting your shoes on. It's funny because Chris used to think I never practiced. And I played along with that. Who needs to practice? Because Chris is, if you know Chris probably works harder than anybody I know at the game. So I practice more than what I would lead on with him. And but now it hurts quite a bit. So to compete at that level, but I'm still going to bowl the state tournament for sure. And I might allegedly be making an appearance in Houston.
Okay.
With Goyke and Jabzinski and their 50 year. I told Bob a couple of years ago, when you guys get to 50, hold a spot. I plan on being there. So I will get my 30th year in.
Well, one of my proudest moments in my role was I got to present those Eagles to you guys in 2013. So hopefully I'll have an opportunity again, even if it's at the senior championships, which is probably a little bit closer of an opportunity, but it certainly would mean a lot to be able to do that once again and see you on the lanes doing what you do.
Hey, yeah, if you're going to give me a trophy, I'll be there.
Daniel's got it right behind him. He'll polish it up for you.
There you go.
I've worked too hard to earn that one. That was mine.
Which one is that, Daniel?
It was a local tournament series that I won.
Yeah.
So
they're all cool, man.
Yeah, and this is a unique one. So I'm a fan. I'm someone who, if you're going to give me a check that I win a tournament for say $2,000, take $300 out of that $2,000 and buy an awesome.
Give me a nice trophy. Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm so tired of plastic bowling pins for trophies.
Yeah, give me something.
I agree. Give me something cool and put up there. I don't disagree. Again, I know we're getting short on time here, but Don Carter's son, Jim, owned a bowling center here locally, and it was amazing to go into that bowling center because you couldn't miss the trophy case.
Uh-huh.
As soon as you walked in the door, this trophy case was probably about 6 foot wide by about 8 foot high. And you want to talk about some cool trophies? To go in there and see one of Don's 300 game awards. It was a gold bowling pin, and let's face it, back then shooting 300 meant something. Uh-huh. And to see that, and the one that I really got every time I walked in, the first one I tried to find was the All-Star tournament before the U.S. Open.
Oh yeah,
uh-huh. yeah, the 100 game tournament.
That's a monster trophy.
It's gigantic, and to go in there, and every time I walked in that bowling center, first thing I did was make a beeline right to the trophy case, and I just sat there, and Laverne's trophies are there, and Don's trophies are there. It's amazing. So, yes, give me some cool trophies like that. That I agree. Take a couple hundred, and make a nice trophy out of it.
Well, last time I got to visit, I think you're having the kitchen remodeled, so there's the Eagles were nowhere in sight. So next trip to Florida,
that's finally done.
I'm looking forward to seeing the trophy case with those Eagles just chilling there.
You guys are always proud and jealous. You guys, I always have plenty of room, and anytime you guys want to come down, especially in the wintertime. Matt, you lived in Florida a little bit. You know what I'm talking about. January, February, come down and it's still 80 degrees.
We'll catch you at football season as well before we head off to Reno if we can. But anyway,
we go to the swamp. I'd go to the swamp. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes. Let's go.
Well, we definitely appreciate your time today, your thoughts, your viewpoints, celebrating such an amazing career. Hopefully there's much more to come, John. Any final thoughts before we go?
No, I appreciate it. Obviously, I'm still kind of wired into bowling. Obviously, all my friends, not all my friends, but a majority of my friends are involved in bowling and still somewhat aware of what's going on. But to sit here and to be able to talk about it, in a format, a forum like this, and I greatly appreciate it. Some of those times that I was very fortunate enough to have and to kind of relive some of those. I appreciate the opportunity, Matt and Daniel. Thank you very much.
And Daniel, I get starstruck every single time. If you're not, I don't even know you right now. Any final thoughts for John before we go?
No, it's just, it's when I started at working the OC last year, one of the many responsibilities I had was to talk to all the 50-year players that were making their 50th appearance. And on the surface, you think, they're all the same, but they each have their own individual story. And while I didn't hold that opinion, knowing that we were going to be talking to a bunch of Hall of Famers, because I know from growing up in the sport that your path there isn't always the same. It's always a pleasure to learn more about these names that I didn't know a lot before I started here. And I leave each podcast with a deeper appreciation for that name on that plaque or on that banner, that trophy. And John, you're certainly on that list. So thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. It means a lot. Thank you.
All right. To all of our viewers, if this was your first time joining us here on Inside the OC, you definitely picked a good time to drop in. And if you're a regular visitor, thank you for your support. My name is Matt Cannizzaro for Daniel Farish and John Gaines. Folks, that's the news for now. We'll see you on the lanes.